this is happening to us. It's a cliche of modern journalism to say that time is speeding up. It's thought of as a metaphor. It is not a metaphor. The crisis that we are experiencing is in part a crisis in ourselves, but it's also a crisis in the physics of the physics in which we are embedded. You see, to account for history, I think you have to stand the standard model of what the universe is completely on its head. The standard model that we inherit from physics it opens with something called the Big Bang. Interestingly, the way science operates is it says, give us one free miracle, and then we can explain everything. Well, if science gets one free miracle, then I think every ideology ought to be given the same advantage. So I think that the miracle of the Big Bang is an unlikelihood so preposterous that it could almost be seen as the limit case for credulity. What I mean by that is, if you can believe that, you can believe anything. I mean, if you believe that the universe sprang from nothing in a single instant from an area considerably smaller than the cross-section of a gnat's eyebrow, then I'd like to talk to you after the show about purchasing a large bridge across the Hudson River that's been in my family for generations. Scientists don't like this kind of talk. If I get one free miracle, then where I would put it is not in the absolute ultra-hyper vacuum of the pre-physical realm before time and space began its unfoldment. That seems to me an extraordinarily unlikely place to have a universe spring from. I think the place to put the free miracle is in a domain in which there are many kinds of energy, many kinds of motion, many forms of organization, inorganic, organic, social, aesthetic, psychological, so forth and so on. In other words, a world somewhat like our own. And so I believe that we are actually moving toward the culmination of history which all these cockeyed religions actually promised. It's just that they so distorted the vision in order to get their moral laundry list tagged onto the thing that it became oppressive and unrecognizable. But you see, if there were only chipmunks and wildcats and cockroaches on this planet, then Darwinian evolutionary theory as modified by molecular biology would be completely adequate to explain the situation. It is ourselves that overturn that cheerful model of what is going on. We represent a breakout from the rules of organic nature and evolution that is no mere small exception, because whatever this breakout that we represent is, it has become the dominant force shaping the planet. Well, what is it? It's that history is the shock wave of eschatology. I think of the surface of a pond, and the time before history is the surface of that pond at absolute equilibrium, calm, mirror smooth. Well then, the surface of the pond begins to churn and ripple and froth. Why? Because something enormous is moving beneath the surface. Something is about to break the surface. History is that agitation of the pond of time. All these migrations, technologies, civilizations, martyrs, saints, kings, fiends, all of this language, poetry, propaganda, these hideous paintings with people's eyes rolled back in ecstasy, the architectonic forms, all of this is an anticipation of something literally unthinkable, but something which invades our lives, our dreams, our psychedelic experiences with increasing urgency, because we are being pulled toward it at a faster and faster rate. This is what the psychedelic experience in the modern context reveals, because really, in my notion, the shaman is a geometer, a hands-on geometer. And what the shaman is doing is rising out of the plane of mundane cultural existence. Mircea Eliade uses the wonderful phrase, rupture of plane, to describe the voyage of the shaman up the trunk of Yggdrasil, the cosmic world ash. Well, this rising out of the plane of sanctioned mundane existence literally gives a higher perspective. And what that higher perspective shows is the flow of information out of biology into the epigenetic domain of language, song, drama, mask making, and then writing, sculpting, and then electronic data transfer, so forth and so on, and then the flowing forward of these self-reflecting noetic activities into the domain, the field, as it were, of this transcendental object at the end of time, which cannot be, at this point in history, defined, because it is below the event horizon of the historical process. All that we can see of it at this point in time is the rosy glow of its promise. Dawn is breaking over Jerusalem. The east is streaked with red. And, every click of the cosmic clock brings us closer to the process for which the planet called us into existence. This is the revelation of the Gaian mind. This is the end of the fiction of civilization and the return to a kind of symbiotic dynamic with a mind whose depth and dimensionality cannot be known by the primate mind of human beings. We are literally moving into the field of a mystery. In fact, its hold on us is now so great, the channels so straight, the walls so steep, that there can't be any turning back. This is the process that was served by the chipping of the first flint, the raising of the first temple, the offering of the first sacrifice, and we now are in a position to understand this, to appreciate this process, and to communicate it to other people. Because without this model, I've racked my brain, I don't think there is a way to make sense of what is happening to the world. Many of you have heard me say, but I think it's worth repeating, what is happening here is not the death of a species or the death of a planetary ecosystem. What is happening here is the birth of a new cosmic order. And if you were to encounter someone giving birth and you had never seen it or even heard it, your impression would be one of emergency. Blood is being shed, there's moaning and groaning and pain and pleading. It's a great leap to be able to look at this and say, aha, something wonderful is happening here. A new life is about to enter the cosmos. An individual that never existed before is about to take his or her place among us. This is what we are caught in. And, in the same way that the amniotic ocean of the womb must have seemed an environment worth preserving at all cost, so too did the naive dimensions of our resource-gobbling past. But lo and behold, the amniotic ocean grows cloudy. The food is no longer being delivered effortlessly through the umbilical cord. In fact, the walls are closing in on us. And there is a sense of suffocation, of hopelessness, of an impending catastrophe, because we are now in transition. We are in the planetary birth canal of a new order. And the best advice anybody can be given at this point, I think, is hang on, Hannah. You simply must believe, because there can be no going back now, that ahead of us lies an unimaginable world characterized by varieties of freedom and opportunity that it would be preposterous for us to attempt to conceive of at this point, except through the glimmering scintillas of anticipation that come to us from eternity, through dream, through prophecy, through the psychedelic experience. And if we trust in what we know and communicate this empowering vision and act as though it all depended on us and our acts of collective caring and attention to each other and the earth, if we act that way, but know that that is a fiction and that actually we are part of an unfolding process for which life was created, then I think instead of hopelessness, despair, anxiety, division, fear, and loathing, there is a replacement with hope, a sense of community, a sense of transcendental adventure. I mean, consciousness rests in us. We don't know what lies out there in the starry galaxy, and it's thin soup to await the coming of the UFO knots or something like that. The real empowering adventure lies through responsibility to each other, love, and aesthetic anticipation of the transcendental realm. And when these things are put in place, the power of the naysayers and the frightened and the materialists and the control freaks and the business as usual crowd will be broken. They cannot maintain. No one is in charge at this moment. And this is good news, because it means that for the first time in a long time, these processes are beginning to unfold themselves without bearing the imprint of resistance upon them. In the end, it's all lost in radiance. And if this seems peculiar to you, the idea of a transformation of the world and a transcendence into a realm beyond imagining, recall that you yourself are scheduled for death very shortly. And so it's built in for you. The only twiddle on the dial that I'm offering is that this kind of transformation lies ahead for everything. Not the death of the materialists, but the resurrection of the alchemists, the rarefaction and transformation of the human mind and body into some kind of eternal golden vehicle for the roving through and the discovery of a universe wider, grander, deeper than anything that we could imagine. And to preserve its power and its transformative essence, we have to keep it away from moral prescription, from too clear a definition. It is not an unsolved problem. It is a mystery, and closure kills the heart of the mystery. So we have to embrace this uncertainty, not as a problem to be overcome, but as an opportunity for shedding our pasts, shedding the monkey, shedding the bad habits of history that have accumulated, and moving into a world that is literally beyond our wildest imaginings. It can't be any other way. Business as usual, as I said, is off the menu, And now it's a struggle between those who would have us lay down quietly in a kind of anesthesia, anticipating ruin, or those who would have us stand up and claim our birthright and go forward into the shamanic domain of the spirit that exists when the human soul and the soul of the earth recognize each other and are united in one. And this is coming, and it's possible, and it's now. And thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So because of the constraints of time and so forth, we decided we'll go right into a Q&A that we'll do for a little while. So, and I guess